The massive warship Eternal Truth hung in the darkness of space like a silver needle against black cloth. Inside its observation deck, Commander First Light stood perfectly still, his tall, slender frame reflected in the transparent walls. His pale eyes, set wide apart in his angular face, studied the blue-green planet below with cold interest. "Another primitive world," he said to no one in particular. His voice was flat and emotionless, exactly as it should be for a member of the Watchers. Their race had long ago moved past the chaos of feelings and instincts. They were the guardians of galactic civilization, deciding which species deserved to join their great society and which needed to be contained for the greater good. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Observer Third Ray entered, carrying a data crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. "Commander, we have completed our initial scan of the planet they call Earth," she reported, her movements as precise and controlled as a machine. First Light took the crystal and inserted it into the viewing terminal. Images and data streamed across the screen. Cities sprawling across continents, vessels crossing vast oceans, aircraft filling the skies. But what caught his attention were the other images. Soldiers marching, weapons being tested, borders drawn and redrawn through centuries of conflict. "Fascinating," he murmured, though there was no fascination in his voice. "They advanced technologically while remaining emotionally primitive. Look at how they organize themselves. Nations competing for resources, groups fighting over beliefs, individuals pursuing personal gain at the expense of others." Third Ray nodded in agreement. "They show all the signs of a Category 7 species, high technological development combined with unchecked emotional responses, the most dangerous combination we have observed." First Light expanded one of the data streams, showing the human crowd at what they called a concert. Thousands of bodies moved together, faces twisted in what the Watchers' archives identified as expressions of joy and excitement. Another image showed humans embracing after some sporting victory, their faces wet with tears. A third displayed two humans pressing their mouths together in what they called a kiss. "Unstable," First Light declared. "Their emotions control them completely. They build weapons that could destroy their world, yet they let their decisions be guided by fear, anger, and love." He spoke the last word as if it was a disease. The Eternal Truth's analysis computers had spent the last 3 months studying Earth's transmissions, literature, and history. They had watched humans make the same mistakes repeatedly, falling into the same patterns of conflict and reconciliation. To the Watchers, this was proof of their unfitness for galactic society. "Prepare the quarantine beacons," First Light ordered. "Standard configuration, full spectrum coverage. No ships in or out. We will notify their governments through the usual channels." He paused, considering something. "Add an extra layer of monitoring satellites. This species shows unusual resourcefulness when they're emotional. We don't want them trying anything foolish." Third Ray moved to carry out the orders, but stopped when a new alert flashed across the screens. "Commander, we're detecting unusual energy readings from their lunar outpost. They appear to be testing some form of faster-than-light communication." First Light's expression didn't change. It never did, but his posture stiffened slightly. "Impossible. Our calculations showed they were at least 50 years from that discovery. How could they have advanced so quickly?" The answer was there in the data streaming past. Dozens of research teams working together across national boundaries, sharing information, driven by their irrational dream of reaching the stars. They had accomplished in months what should have taken decades, simply because they refused to accept the logical limitations. "It changes nothing," First Light declared. "In fact, it proves our point. They're advancing too quickly without the proper emotional development. If they reach the stars in their current state, they'll spread chaos throughout the galaxy." He turned away from the window. "Begin the quarantine immediately, and prepare a full report for the Council. They'll want to know about this deviation from predicted development patterns." As First Light left the observation deck, he didn't notice something that would have troubled him deeply if he had, for just a moment. He had felt a flicker of something dangerously close to surprise. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a tiny voice wondered if perhaps there was something about these humans that the Watchers, in all their perfect logic, had failed to understand. Captain Kate Miller stared at the message playing across her screen for the 5th time, still struggling to believe what she was reading. The dim light of Earth Defense Force headquarters cast a blue glow across her face as she leaned back in her chair, running her fingers through her short gray hair. "Play it again," she ordered. The AI complied, and the alien transmission filled the room once more. "To the governing bodies of Earth, your species has been evaluated and found unsuitable for galactic integration. Your emotional instability and aggressive tendencies pose an unacceptable risk to civilized space. A quarantine barrier is now in effect around your solar system. Any attempt to breach this barrier will result in immediate defensive action. This is not a negotiation." The message went on to list humanity's failings in cold, precise terms. Their love of art and music was cited as evidence of primitive thought patterns. Their willingness to fight for beliefs was marked as dangerous instability. Even their ability to feel deep emotions was presented as proof of their unfitness for galactic society. "They're broadcasting this on all frequencies," Tom Reed, her communications officer, reported from his station. His dark skin looked ashen under the emergency lights. Every radio telescope, every satellite dish, even old TV antennas are picking it up. They want everyone to hear it. Kate stood and walked to the main window overlooking the lunar surface. The Earth hung in the black sky like a blue jewel, but now it looked different. Now it looked like a prison. "What about the barrier they mentioned?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The holographic display behind her showed it clearly enough. A network of satellites and energy fields encircling the entire solar system. "It's real," Lisa Park, the head scientist, confirmed. She pulled up detailed scans on the main screen. "And it's like nothing we've ever seen. The energy readings are off the charts. Our most powerful ships couldn't even scratch it." But something about this situation wasn't adding up. Kate walked back to her desk and studied the alien transmission data. Why would they broadcast their entire technological database along with the quarantine message? All their specifications, their cultural information, even their language matrices, it's all here. Tom looked up from his station, his eyes widening. Maybe they didn't mean to. The data stream is massive. Could be some kind of leak. Lisa shook her head, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "No, this is deliberate. Look at how it's structured. They wanted us to see this." She paused, a small smile forming on her face. "And they have no idea what they've just given us." Kate understood. The aliens, these Watchers, as they called themselves, thought they were simply demonstrating their superiority. But they had just handed humanity a complete guide to their technology, their thinking, and their weaknesses. "Get me the Joint Chiefs," Kate ordered, "and connect me to the Breakthrough Lab at Luna Base. Tell them to drop everything else. We have work to do." As her team scrambled to comply, Kate studied the alien ships visible through the window. They were beautiful in their way, all smooth lines and gleaming metal. But they had made a fatal mistake. They had judged humanity's emotions as weakness, never considering that those same emotions might drive humans to achieve the impossible. "They think they're locking us in," she murmured. "They don't realize they've just given us the key." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Scientists pored over the alien data, military strategists analyzed their tactics, and engineers began sketching out adaptations of Watcher technology. The very qualities the aliens dismissed: human creativity, determination, and yes, emotion, were now being turned toward understanding and eventually defeating their advanced technology. Lisa's voice cut through the controlled chaos. "Captain, you need to see this. We found something in their cultural database. They've done this before, quarantined other species they deemed too emotional. There are others out there, just like us." Kate felt a smile spread across her face, the kind of emotional response the Watchers would disapprove of. "Then we're not just breaking ourselves out," she said. "We're going to free them all." In orbit above them, the Watchers continued their emotionless vigil, not realizing that their perfect logical analysis had missed something crucial. Humans had never responded well to being told what they couldn't do. And now, they had just challenged humanity to prove them wrong. The red dust of Mars swirled around Dr. James Cooper's boots as he knelt beside the ancient stone archway. His hand trembled slightly as he brushed away centuries of dust, revealing symbols that shouldn't exist. Behind him, the small research team waited in tense silence, the only sound the soft whir of their oxygen recyclers. "This can't be right," he muttered, checking his tablet's readings again. "These markings are at least 50,000 years old. That's long before the Watchers claimed they found our solar system." The discovery had started as a routine survey of Martian caves, part of humanity's desperate search for any advantage against their alien jailers. But what they'd found hidden beneath the red planet's surface was about to change everything. The beam from James's helmet light played across the walls, illuminating more symbols. They were different from the Watchers' precise, angular writing. These were flowing, organic, almost alive in how they moved across the stone. And they told a story that contradicted everything the Watchers had claimed about humanity's past. "Look at this," he called out, pointing to a series of images. "These aren't just decorations. They're records." He traced the patterns with his finger. Someone was here before the Watchers. Someone was watching us grow, develop. And they saw something completely different. Mary Wong, his assistant, moved closer, her own light revealing more of the ancient text. She had spent months learning to read the Watchers' language from their broadcast data. "These symbols, they're talking about emotions, but not as weakness." She paused, double-checking her translation. "They're describing them as power, as the source of growth." James nodded excitedly, his breathing quick in his helmet. "The Watchers think they're the first advanced civilization to find us, that their way is the only way. But look here." He gestured to a large mural showing various alien species, including what were clearly early humans. These beings, whoever they were, they valued exactly what the Watchers reject. The evidence was overwhelming. The cave walls told of ancient visitors who had studied Earth's life forms, particularly humans. But unlike the Watchers, they had seen humanity's capacity for emotion as a strength. The cave writings spoke of rapid adaptation, of the power of feelings to drive innovation and change. "Send everything to Captain Miller," James ordered, his voice tight with excitement. "The Watchers are wrong. They're not just wrong about us. They're wrong about evolution itself. Their perfect, emotionless logic. It's not the peak of development. It's a dead end." As his team worked to document every inch of the discovery, James studied a particular section of the mural that showed a striking image. A being of pure energy, its form shifting and changing, embracing a group of different alien species. Below it, the ancient text spoke of growth, of change, of the power of feeling and thinking together. "That's why they gave us their data," he realized suddenly. "They're so convinced they're right, so certain of their superiority, they never considered we could find a different path. They don't understand that their greatest weakness is thinking they have none." The team worked through the night, their excitement growing with each new translation. The ancient visitors had left more than just records. They had left a warning. Species that rejected their emotions, that chose pure logic, eventually stopped growing. They became like the Watchers, powerful but stagnant, unable to adapt or change. "Send a priority message to Luna Base," James said, standing up and looking at the vast chamber of knowledge around them. "Tell them we found proof that the Watchers' whole philosophy is built on a mistake. Emotion isn't a weakness to overcome. It's the thing that makes us strong." As the message was sent, James looked at one final image on the wall. It showed a species much like the Watchers, frozen in their perfection, while around them younger, more dynamic races reached for the stars. The ancient artists had seen this coming, had tried to warn against the path of pure logic. "We're not primitive," James whispered, touching the ancient stone. "We're not unstable or dangerous. We're exactly what we need to be." He smiled behind his helmet visor. "And it's time to show the galaxy what humanity can really do." The Prometheus moved silently through space, its experimental engines running dark. Captain Kate Miller watched from the bridge as her ship slipped past the edge of the quarantine barrier, using the very technology the Watchers had unknowingly shared with them. The ship's hull, reverse-engineered from Watcher specifications, bent light around them like a cloak. "Barrier passage complete," Tom reported from his station, keeping his voice low as if the Watchers might somehow hear them through the void of space. "Their sensors show no sign of detecting us." Kate allowed herself a small smile. 6 months of non-stop work had led to this moment. The Prometheus wasn't just humanity's first faster-than-light ship. It was living proof that the Watchers had underestimated them. The vessel combined Watcher technology with human ingenuity in ways its creators had never imagined. Dr. James Cooper stood at the science station, examining readings from the ship's enhanced sensors. The discoveries on Mars had changed their entire mission. They weren't just breaking free anymore. They were searching for allies. "I'm picking up signs of another quarantine barrier," he announced, his fingers dancing across the holographic controls. 3 light years ahead. Configuration matches the one around Earth. "Another prison," Kate said softly. "How many species have they locked away, just because they didn't fit the Watcher's perfect model?" The Prometheus carried proof of the Watcher's mistake. Complete records of the Mars discoveries, showing that emotion and adaptability were crucial for true advancement. But they carried something else too: hope. Hope for all the species the Watchers had judged and found wanting. Lisa's voice cut through the tension. Multiple ships approaching. Watcher patrol vessels. The crew held their breath, but the patrol passed without noticing them. The stolen technology was working perfectly. As they approached the second barrier, they detected something extraordinary. Inside the quarantine zone, ships were moving. Ships that didn't match Watcher designs. Another imprisoned species had managed to develop space travel, just as humanity had. "They're broadcasting," Tom reported excitedly. "Some kind of repeating signal. Not Watcher language." The message was simple: a mathematical sequence proving intelligence, followed by a greeting in multiple formats. Kate ordered a response using the same pattern, adding their own message of friendship. The alien ship that approached them was beautiful in a way completely different from Watcher vessels. Where Watcher ships were all straight lines and cold efficiency, this craft moved like a living thing, its hull rippling with colors that seemed to express emotions. "They're requesting visual communication," Tom said, his hand hovering over the accept control. Kate nodded, and the main screen lit up. The beings they saw were unlike anything in the Watcher's databases. They seemed to be made of shifting colored mist, their forms changing as they spoke. The translator, built from the Watcher's own language matrices, began to decipher their words. "We are the mist dancers," the alien leader said, their forms swirling with patterns that somehow conveyed both caution and hope. "You are not Watchers. You are, like us, imprisoned for feeling too much." Kate stepped forward. "We are humans, from Earth. We've discovered the truth about the Watchers. Their belief in pure logic is flawed. We've found proof that emotion and adaptation are the keys to true advancement." The mist dancer's colors shifted to bright patterns that the crew somehow knew meant joy. "We have long suspected this. Our scientists have studied the Watcher's barrier. Their technology is powerful, but unchanging. They haven't advanced in thousands of years." James joined Kate at the screen. "We've learned to copy and improve their technology. Together, we might be able to free everyone they've imprisoned." The alien leader's form rippled with what could only be described as laughter. The Watchers believe they created perfect prisons, but they made them perfect only against logical, predictable attacks. They never considered what beings of emotion and creativity might achieve. Kate felt hope surge through her as she looked at these strange, wonderful allies. The Watchers had imprisoned species across the galaxy, thinking they were containing primitive, dangerous emotions. Instead, they had created a network of potential allies, all driven by the very feelings that made them strong. "Let's show them just how wrong they were," she said, and both human and alien crews prepared to change the galaxy forever. The great hall of the Proxima mining colony buzzed with energy as representatives from 4 quarantined species gathered in secret. Captain Kate Miller stood at the front of the room, looking out at this strange and wonderful assembly. The misty forms of the mist dancers swirled in one section, their colors shifting with their emotions. The tall, crystal-like warriors of Proxima stood rigid and proud, their bodies glowing with internal fire. The root-like builders of Tau Ceti spread across the floor and walls, their networked minds sharing thoughts through gentle pulses of light. "We all share something the Watchers fear," Kate began, her voice carrying across the chamber. "They call it primitive. They call it dangerous. But we know better. Our emotions, our ability to adapt and change, make us stronger than they can imagine." James stepped forward, projecting images from the Mars ruins onto the central display. "These ancient records prove what we all suspected. The path of pure logic leads to stagnation. True growth requires both thinking and feeling." The Proximan leader, a crystalline giant named Brightcore, raised his glowing arm. "We have watched the Watchers for centuries through our prison walls. Their ships never change. Their tactics never improve. They are trapped in patterns they cannot break." A mist dancer named Ever-Changing rippled forward, their colors showing determination. "Our people have learned to bend their barrier's energy, though we could never break through completely. But combined with your human innovations—" "Exactly," Lisa interrupted, bringing up technical diagrams. "We've modified their technology using principles they never considered. They designed everything based on pure efficiency. But we found that unpredictable, emotion-driven modifications actually make their systems more powerful." The builders pulsed with excitement, their root-like structures glowing brighter. Their spokesperson, Deeproot, extended a glowing tendril toward the display. "We have seen this in our own work. The Watchers' barriers are perfect against logical attacks, but they cannot adapt to handle creative solutions they never predicted." Tom brought up a map of known quarantine zones. "We've confirmed at least 20 other imprisoned species. The Watchers have created their own opposition without realizing it. Every race they locked away has spent generations looking for ways to break free." The assembly stirred with growing excitement as Kate outlined their plan. Each species brought unique strengths: human ingenuity, mist dancer energy manipulation, Proximan power generation, and builder biological technology. Together, they could do what none of them could manage alone. "But we're not just planning a prison break," Kate continued, her voice growing stronger. "We're going to show the galaxy that the Watchers are wrong. Their way isn't the only path to advancement. It's not even the best path." The mist dancers swirled with colors of agreement, their mist forming complex patterns that expressed both hope and determination. The Proximans' crystalline bodies hummed with resonant energy, and the builders' root network pulsed with synchronized light. "Our first target will be the quarantine barrier around the Centauri system," Kate explained, highlighting the location. "Its inhabitants have nearly achieved spaceflight on their own. With our help, they can join our alliance." The planning continued through the night. The Proximans shared their energy-focusing crystals, which could amplify the humans' modified Watcher technology. The mist dancers demonstrated how they could slip through tiny gaps in energy fields, carrying information between ships. The builders offered their living ships, vessels that could heal and adapt during battle. As the meeting drew to a close, Kate looked out at this impossible assembly. The Watchers had meant to imprison them all forever, seeing their differences as weakness. Instead, they had created the most powerful alliance the galaxy had ever seen. "They thought they were protecting civilization from us," she said softly. "But real civilization isn't about removing what makes us different or suppressing what makes us feel. It's about bringing all our strengths together." The assembled beings signaled agreement in their own ways: pulses of light, swirls of color, crystalline chimes. Together, they had proved that the Watcher's greatest fear was actually the galaxy's greatest hope. Emotion, creativity, and diversity weren't weaknesses to be contained. They were the keys to a future the Watchers, in all their perfect logic, could never imagine. Commander First Light stood frozen on the bridge of the eternal truth, watching as the impossible unfolded before him. The quarantine barrier around the Centauri system was failing, its perfect patterns disrupted by weapons and techniques that shouldn't exist. Ships of impossible design slipped through gaps that his sensors couldn't explain, each one built from twisted versions of Watcher technology. "How are they doing this?" he demanded, his emotionless voice showing the smallest crack of uncertainty. These barriers were designed to be perfect. Perfect against logical attacks. Came a voice from his command screen. Captain Kate Miller's face appeared, flanked by swirling mists and crystalline forms. But emotion and creativity find paths that logic can't predict. The Watcher fleet moved to contain the breach, their ships arranging themselves in mathematically perfect formations. But the Allied fleet moved in patterns that made no sense, their tactics changing randomly, driven by feeling rather than pure calculation. Builder ships grew new organs on the fly, adapting to each Watcher response. Mist dancer vessels slipped through solid matter, ignoring physical laws the Watchers had thought absolute. "You're making a mistake," First Light stated, trying to understand these creatures who defied his people's perfect system. "Without control, without pure logic, you will bring chaos to the galaxy." "Look around you, Commander," Kate replied, gesturing to her bridge where humans worked alongside crystalline proximans and root-like builders. "We're not bringing chaos. We're bringing change, growth, life." The battle spread across the Centauri system as more quarantine barriers fell. Ships from 20 different imprisoned species joined the fight, each bringing their own unique improvements to the Watchers' stolen technology. Where the Watchers saw flaws to be contained, these species had seen opportunities to grow stronger. First Light received urgent reports from across Watcher space. Young Watchers, those who had seen the stagnation in their society but never dared speak of it, were questioning the old ways. The proof from Mars was spreading through their networks, evidence that their ancestors had known a better path but had turned away from it in fear. "Your victory here means nothing," First Light insisted, even as more of his ships fell to the Allies' unpredictable tactics. "The Council will never accept this disorder." But on his own bridge, First Light saw his crew watching the Allied ships with something dangerous in their eyes: curiosity. The younger Watchers were seeing how emotion and logic could work together, creating something greater than their perfect but frozen society had achieved in millennia. The eternal truth shuddered as builder ships attached themselves to its hull, their living technology beginning to merge with and transform the Watcher vessel. Mist dancers slipped through the walls, their colors showing not anger but invitation. Human engineers followed, led by Lisa Park, carrying the truth about both ancient and modern history. "Your people have a choice." Kate's voice came again as First Light watched his perfect world crumble. "You can keep believing you've reached the peak of development, that emotions must be controlled and differences contained, or you can join us in discovering just how much further we can all go together." First Light felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: doubt. He watched as his crew made their choices, some maintaining their rigid control, others allowing themselves to feel wonder at what they were witnessing. The very thing the Watchers had feared most, the power of emotion, was proving to be the force that could break centuries of stagnation. As the last quarantine barriers fell and ships from every imprisoned species filled the sky, First Light realized that the galaxy would never be the same. The perfect, ordered society his people had tried to build was transforming into something messier but far more alive. "Perhaps," he said slowly, feeling the unfamiliar sensation of uncertainty, "what we believed was wrong." Around him, the combined fleet of emotional beings celebrated their victory not with perfect formation flying, but with swooping, joyful maneuvers that defy tactical sense. And for the first time in longer than he could remember, First Light wondered what it would feel like to join them. 1 year after the fall of the quarantine system, the Great Hall of the Watcher High Council looked very different. The once sterile chamber now pulsed with life and color. Mist dancers floated near the ceiling, their colors reflecting off crystalline Proximum delegates. Builder root networks grew along the walls, carrying messages and emotions through their living circuits. And at the center of it all stood humans and watchers together, their differences no longer seen as flaws, but as strengths to be celebrated. First Light, now serving as the bridge between old and new, stood before the assembled species. His rigid posture had softened, and his eyes showed something that would have been forbidden a year ago: feeling. "We believed we were protecting the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying traces of emotion that still felt strange but right. "We thought our perfect logic had shown us the only path to advancement. We were wrong." Captain Kate Miller stood beside him, her presence a symbol of how far they had all come. "The past year has shown us what can happen when we combine the Watchers' knowledge with the creativity and emotion of the species they once imprisoned." The evidence was everywhere. The combined fleet now protecting galaxies showed what happened when Watcher technology was improved by emotional innovation. Ships that could think and feel, barriers that adapted instead of just standing rigid, weapons turned into tools for exploration and growth. "Our greatest fear," First Light continued, "was that emotion would bring chaos to the galaxy. Instead, it has brought transformation, progress that pure logic could never achieve alone." The chamber's displays showed the changes spreading across known space. Young watchers working alongside humans and other species, learning to balance logic with feeling. The mist dancers teaching others how to see beauty in change. Proximans showing how passion could make technology stronger, not weaker. Builders demonstrating how systems could grow and adapt naturally. James Cooper, now leading a combined research team studying the Mars ruins, stepped forward. "We've discovered more records left by the ancient species. They didn't just watch us develop. They saw this moment coming. They knew that true advancement could only come when all paths were welcomed." The gathered species shared their achievements of the past year. Diseases cured by combining Watcher medical knowledge with Builder organic technology. New forms of faster-than-light travel discovered by mixing Proximum energy crystals with human intuition. Planets restored to life by Mist Dancer environmental techniques improved by Watcher precision. "But our greatest achievement," Kate said, smiling at the assembled beings, "isn't in our technology. It's in proving that our differences make us stronger together." Tom and Lisa, working at a console merged with Builder roots, displayed a map of the galaxy. The old quarantine barriers were gone, replaced by trading routes and cultural exchange paths. Where the Watchers had tried to keep species apart, now they flowed together, each bringing their unique strengths to every challenge. "We no longer seek perfection," First Light declared, using words that would have been unthinkable in his old life. "We seek growth, change, life in all its beautiful imperfection." A young Watcher named Dawn Seeker stepped forward, representing the new generation. Unlike her elders, she had grown up learning to embrace both logic and emotion. "The Ancient Ones left us a message in those Mars ruins," she said, her voice carrying both precision and warmth. "They told us that the universe is too vast, too wonderful, to be understood by any single way of thinking." The assembled species celebrated in their own ways, Mist dancers swirling in joy, Proximans glowing with pride, Builders pulsing with shared happiness, humans laughing and cheering, and Watchers allowing themselves to feel the simple pleasure of being part of something greater than perfection. As the celebration continued, Kate found First Light watching a group of young Watchers learning emotional expression from a Mist Dancer teacher. "Do you ever miss the old ways?" she asked him. First Light was quiet for a moment, considering. "I miss the certainty," he admitted, knowing exactly what was right and wrong, what was perfect and what was flawed. He turned to her, and his face showed a small but genuine smile. "But I would never go back. What we believed was wrong. But learning the truth has led us to something far more wonderful than perfection. Above them, the galaxy spun on, no longer divided between logical and emotional, no longer seeking an impossible perfection, but growing, changing, and living together in all its beautiful complexity.